I was born on July 6, 1975, in South Jamaica neighborhood of Queens. I was raised by a 15-year-old single mother, Sabrina, who was a drug dealer at the time. She raised me until she was killed by a gunshot when I was only 8 years old. After my mother's death, my father abandoned me, and I was left alone to be raised by my grandmother. Losing both my parents at a very young age, I had to find a way to deal with the pain I was going through. So I began boxing at the age of 11. And because my grandmother had 9 other children in her charge, I spent a good deal of time on the streets in order to make some money, so I wouldn't ask my grandma for something she couldn't afford. By the time I was 12, I became a drug dealer, and I started selling drugs in my school and in my neighborhood. Living a drug dealer life meant getting arrested on multiple occasions. Even though I was selling drugs and making some extra cash, I knew if I continued with this path, I would finally end up with the same fate as my mother. So I decided to make rap songs to describe the life I was living in the hood. I decided to call myself 50 Cent, after a robber's name. The name was a symbol of change, a symbol that I would provide for myself by any means necessary. I began rapping in my friend's basement where I would record over instrumentals. Shortly after, I was introduced to Jam Master Jay of Run DMC. He taught me how to count bars, write choruses, structure songs, and make records. And he even produced an album for me, but unfortunately the album never came out. So I decided to leave Jam Master Jay and put matters into my own hands. I was then later signed to Columbia label, where I had to prove my ability as an upcoming rapper. I remember producing 36 songs in 2 weeks.
You were locked down in the studio for 2 weeks. You came up with 36 songs.
But even with my efforts, the record label never promoted my music. All they did was stall me. And when you pour everything you have into a project and it doesn't work out, insecurity sets. I became vulnerable, and self-doubt started to sabotage my energy. My fans probably didn't sense it, but it was there. Thankfully, my hustler spirit was stronger than any pessimism that might have infiltrated my spirit. I had the confidence and patience to keep moving forward. The way I saw it, I was left with 2 choices. 1, either I go head back to the hood and cry about how Columbia Records was playing me, or 2, do something constructive while I waited. I chose the constructive path. For me, Columbia might have been stalling, but I was still assigned to them. I still had access to their office, so I went to each department and used that waiting time to soak up the information I might need later in my career. I learned about album cover designing, how the publicity machine worked, basically anything that could become valuable later on. During this process, I finally came to a realization that the label couldn't do everything for me. Every rapper was always wanting for a label to do everything for them. I realized that I was going to have to make myself hot before the label could get my song played, or a vet would be able to get me magazine articles. I realized that the labels could build on momentum, but they were limited when it came to creating it. I knew I had to find a way to promote myself. I needed a marketing plan, a plan to create a buzz around my name. At the time, hip-hop was in a cautious state because of recent deaths of Biggie and Tupac.
Gangster rap singer Tupac Shakur died tonight in a Las Vegas hospital. The controversial MTV Award winner who sold millions of records was on life support for the last 6 days after he was shot up in a drive-by ambush.
Everyone was afraid of a new war popping off, and it became taboo to mention another rapper's name in your song. If people did take shots at each other, they were subtle ones that only a hardcore fan would catch. I had a golden opportunity. I hadn't signed any truths. There weren't any rappers out there who had value to me as a friend, but as enemies, well, that was a different story. I knew if someone had the confidence to come out of the shadows and re-embrace hip-hop's tradition of firing direct shots, the buzz would be definite. I decided to be that person and made the music called How to Rob, where I would diss all the famous rappers in the industry. It was a diss to the entire industry. Everybody got called out by their name. Upon releasing the song, it created a buzz on Hot 97, New York City's premier radio station at the time.
Right now,
I got a new single out called How to Rob. It's off of the movie soundtrack In Too Deep.
Is that the one that How to Rob an Industry Cat?
Yeah.
That they blazing on the radio stations
Yeah.
right now?
That's what's going on, you know.
Most of those artists weren't prepared for someone saying their name in a song throughout the culture. Everyone was asking, "Whoa, who is this new guy?" Because he's saying everyone's name and don't care about nothing. Some of the biggest ones, including Jay-Z, Big Pun, and Wu-Tang, had responses for me, which is exactly what I hoped for. I needed something that was going to create attention around me, and How to Rob got me noticed immediately. Everything was going according to my plan. Even Nas invited me to join him on tour. But shortly after, the diss I made would finally get me into trouble. On May 24th, 2000, I was attacked by a gunman outside grandmother's home in South Jamaica. I was shot in the hand, arm, hip, both legs, chest, and left cheek. My facial wound would result in a swollen tongue, the loss of a wisdom tooth, and a slightly slurred voice. It happened so fast that you don't even get a chance to shoot back. I was scared the whole time. After the actual shooting, I went through a process of being afraid. I wasn't comfortable with being afraid, and the only time I wasn't afraid was when actively looking for the person responsible. That was the only way I knew to get through the physical pain. Getting shot 9 times at close range and not dying, I started to think that I must have a purpose in life. Even though the shooting derailed everything I put into motion, I never gave up on my dreams. 2 years later, I released a mixtape, Guess Who's Back, that was given to Eminem. Very impressed, Eminem invited me to fly to Los Angeles and introduced me to Dr. Dre. After signing a $1 million record deal, my dreams were finally coming true. This was the perfect opportunity for me to show the world my talent. I released my debut album, Get Rich or Die Tryin', which debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, selling 872,000 copies in its first 4 days. The lead single, In the Club, set a Billboard record as the most listened to song in radio history within a week. I was later given my own record label, G Unit, where I signed Lloyd Banks, Tony Yayo, and Young Buck as members of G Unit. And since then, I have been recognized as one of the great artists of my generation. Fast forward to now. Man, life has been beautiful. I must say I've been blessed. I've used my media image to launch multiple businesses in various industries. I've signed a record deal with Reebok. I made $100 million after selling my stake in vitamin water. I launched the G Unit clothing line. I started an energy drink called SK Energy. I wrote a book with Robert Greene called The 50th Law, and my most recent venture, Power Television Series, that holds the most viewers ever for Star's original series record. When you look me up, some may call me arrogant, some may call me insensitive, and most people call me a bully. But when you get shot 9 times, you start to see the world differently. The paranoia from the experience of actually being hurt heightens your senses to everything. The possibility of things that people can do for you. It shifted me. When you get hurt that bad, either your fear consumes you or you become a bit insensitive, and you start to approach the problem instead of running from it. My name is 50 Cent, and I'm the founder and CEO of G Unit Productions and Power Television Show. And this is my story.